And good Friday morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Friday, May 5th. It is 8 a.m. on the East Coast. White House is still refusing to answer any questions about the whistleblower who says Joe Biden sold out America to foreign nationals. Watch this.
I'm going to have to refer you to the Justice Department on that. I have nothing for you on that today.
No, do you know what this is, what country this pertains to, or what policy decision?
I have nothing for you, sir. I'm going to have to refer you to the Justice Department.
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is sending a subpoena to FBI Director Christopher Wray, demanding that he testify on the allegations that the Bureau possesses an unclassified internal document which proves then Vice President Joe Biden leveraged U.S. policy for personal gain. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley raising the possibility that the White House may have to block House investigators from obtaining the document. Watch this.
It'll be successful unless the White House classifies this document. And they better not, because I know it's a non-classified document. But they could keep me from getting it by classifying it.
Joining me right now is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Kentucky Congressman James Comer. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Good morning.
Well, there's so much to talk to you about. You're doing a great job digging into this. What can you tell us about the whistleblower claims? What is the whistleblower saying specifically?
Well, as you know, Maria, Senator Grassley and I have reviewed a legally protected and highly credible whistleblower document, which alleges that there was an exchange of money for policy decisions made by then Vice President Joe Biden. We have determined that whistleblower is extremely credible, and based on the bank records that I've been getting, and you and I have been talking about on your show for weeks now, and based on the fact that 9 different Biden family members have been receiving payments from a web of LLCs that are receiving payments from our adversaries around the world, this fits a pattern of questionable behavior that the Biden family members have been doing to receive funds. So we take this whistleblower claim very seriously. We know it exists. We know the FBI has the document. As Senator Grassley said, it is not classified. So we want that document in our possession. And we also want to know what the FBI did to verify the claim of the whistleblower.
Yeah, I mean, I know of at least one decision that Joe Biden made years ago about pretty much waiving all federal audit requirements for Chinese-listed companies on U.S. exchanges. And I'm wondering if this is one of the decisions that you're looking at. As we've discussed before, back in 2013, then Vice President Biden signed a memorandum of understanding with Chinese officials to allow all these Chinese companies to trade on our exchanges, and they didn't have to follow any of the audit rules that other public companies have to. You told me you were looking at 6 specific decisions that Joe Biden made that could be decisions that he was paid for personally. Is that one of them?
Well, Maria, the odds that that's one of them are very high right now. You've done a tremendous job reporting this from day one. I wish the mainstream media would follow suit. But look, there are many decisions that Joe Biden's made that clearly put China first and America last. And there are decisions he's made that I don't think a lot of people know about in other countries pertaining to a host of different issues that put America last. So the question arises, what have the Bidens done to receive all this money? You know, the most frustrating thing about this investigation thus far, Maria, has been when I disclosed that we identified 7 additional Biden family members that were receiving payments, bringing the total to 9. The first thing the media did was ask, well, what did this have to do with Joe Biden? I mean, what are you talking about? What does it have to do with Joe Biden? How do the young relatives of the President of the United States receive anonymous wires from our adversaries around the world? I mean, obviously it has to do with Joe Biden. So what we're trying to determine is this president compromised? And were these bad decisions that put America last made because of payments made to his family or even to him? Now, this whistleblower claims that these payments were made to the Vice President of the United States. And look, there's a pattern here with the bank records that would verify this claim by the whistleblower. And we want to know, did the FBI even check into this? Because we've heard many stories, and Jim Jordan's doing a great job looking into the weaponization of the DOJ and FBI. You know, all along with anything pertaining to Joe Biden, where it's classified documents, whether it's the mischief that his son, the crimes that his son has committed, the FBI and the IRS have a history of turning a blind eye and burying it, just like they did with the laptop. They thought when they got that laptop from the repairman that they took it and it disappeared. They didn't know that there were copies out there. So we want to know, what did they do with this document? There's no question, Maria, whether or not this document exists. There's no question as to whether or not this whistleblower is highly credible. The question is, what did the FBI do with this information? Very damaging information that they received during a presidential election.
Well, I've said from day one, this is a Joe Biden story, not a Hunter Biden story. I mean, to say what does Joe Biden have to do with this is absolutely absurd. He's got everything to do with it. It is Joe Biden that they're paying for. He was a sitting vice president. He's a sitting president. They want his approval or his ability to give them access to getting into America in some way. I mean, that's why the CCP is buying up land and trying to buy up land. Did he allow that? I mean, why did he walk into the White House and shut down the China initiative as one of his first
That's a big deal
jobs?
right there, Maria.
Yeah,
that China initiative is a very big deal, very concerning.
Is that, did he get paid for that, to shut down? Did he get paid for shutting down the China initiative?
Well, that's what we're trying to determine. Well, I can tell you this. The Biden family have received a lot of payment from the Chinese Communist Party, from entities that are state-owned entities. What that means is they were owned by China, which means they're owned by the Chinese Communist Party. And one of the roles that we determined that Hunter played to receive some money. Now, we don't know what the family members did to receive money. We don't know what these other 8 family members did, but one of the roles that Hunter played for CEFC, the Chinese energy company, was to help them be able to start buying farmland in the United States, to buy interest in energy companies in the United States. All the things that Congress is working in a bipartisan way to stop China from doing. Joe Biden's son was getting paid by the Chinese Communist Party to try to help them do it in the United States and in other countries. So it's very concerning that this president continues to make decisions that put China first and America last, especially when we now have their bank records, which they never thought we would have. And it shows millions of dollars being deposited into Biden family members' back pockets.
It's unbelievable. And it's even more stunning that you can have intelligence officials actually turning a blind eye to this. We know that the former intelligence officials John Brennan and James Clapper are going to testify in front of a House panel this month on why they signed that letter, which suggested that the Biden laptop was a part of Russian disinformation campaign. We've got newly surfaced emails show that back in 2020, former CIA Deputy Director Michael Morrell asked Brennan to sign the Hunter Biden laptop disinformation letter. Brennan responded, add my name to the list. Good initiative, Congressman. It seems to me that these are the very people who abused their power. Back in 2016 and 2017, I remember disgusting tweets from John Brennan about Donald Trump colluding with Russia. That was a complete lie. They had to know that it was made up. We have the notes from John Brennan when he was telling President Obama that the Russians are aware of the story Hillary Clinton came up with to tie Trump to a Russia scandal. And here he is again, inserting himself, using that former CIA title as credibility to say the Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. What do you want to find out from them when they testify?
Well, we want to know exactly what they used to determine their decision to have such a big influence on the election. And what we've seen from the email is they didn't look into anything. And one of the things that continues to come up with the people that we communicate with in the Department of Justice, in the FBI, that people that are in what I would consider the deep state, they say the same thing. These people know the Bidens are corrupt, but their hatred for Donald Trump far outweighs anything that would matter with respect to national security and that would matter with respect to determining whether or not Joe Biden is compromised because of all the money he's taken from our adversaries around the world. They hate Donald Trump. And the most important thing to our intelligence community was defeating Donald Trump to protect the Bidens or anyone else who was trying to do their darndest to defeat Donald Trump. So the reason Chuck Grassley's so upset over this document is because he's been investigating this from day one. And, he's been on this for several years. I've been on it for a little over 100 days, Maria. He's been on it for several years.
Right.
And the intelligence community has lied time after time to Chuck Grassley about whether or not they were looking into certain things pertaining to the Biden family. And remember, Chuck Grassley served for decades with Joe Biden in the U.S. Senate. He has known Joe Biden for over 40 years. Wow. And he's dead set on uncovering public corruption with this family. That's how confident he is that public corruption exists. And he's frustrated with the intelligence community because they continue to lie to him. They have lied time after time. We know this document exists. We want the document, and we want to know what they did to verify the document. So they have until May the 10th, the FBI, to produce this document and answer our questions.
And that document, does it detail exactly the money taken for the exact policy decisions he was supposed to sign off on?
It's pretty detailed, Maria.
Wow. Okay. Congressman, we're going to keep watching this. Mr. Chairman, you've done a stellar job here. It's got to be tough with all of the pushback you're getting and the misinformation that they're trying to float. We'll be watching, sir. Thanks so much.